Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's Institute for Quantitative Biomedicine seminar. We're fortunate today to be visited by Dr. Mengjia Zhu from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, who I will introduce in a moment. But we first have a few housekeeping announcements as usual. So Michael, please. So I want to draw your attention to the fact that one of our own, Shashir Chandawat, will be speaking here on November the 13th. And then that will be followed by another of our own, Fiorella Prada, on November 20th. And then we'll conclude this autumn 2024 series with Romy Amaro from UCSD. So let's, next slide, please. So we've got a number of events coming up in rapid succession. There's a virtual office hour for Molstar for those of you who want to learn more about how to use this open source molecular visualization software system, and that will be run by Shuchi Dutta, who's our expert in Molstar and scientific training, education, and documentation lead. Next slide, please. Also on the 4th of November, a little bit later in the day, Sebastian Bittrich from our UCSD team and Dennis Peel from the Rutgers RCSB PDB team will be doing a webinar on binary CIF and using that compression technology to be able to rapidly access the entire PDB in a single bound. And the next slide, please. On the 7th of November, another team member here from Rutgers, Ezra Pasak, will be talking about supporting extended PDB IDs. This is largely a session intended for software developers who want to make the necessary modifications to be able to access the archive in the future from their software systems with these new extended PDB IDs that are being forced on us by the success of the structural biology community. Next slide, please. Again, we have a number of opportunities available here within the RCSB Protein Data Bank. My job is up for grabs. Please apply or nominate anybody you think would be appropriate. We have actually filled the IT infrastructure lead opening here at Rutgers, pending a background check of a very promising candidate. There's still a postdoc slot open in bioinformatics at UCSD, and then there are both gap year and summer research opportunities available here at Rutgers. Next slide, please. Don't forget to thank the IQB team when you see them. None of this would be possible without their support, and I'm very grateful to everybody involved, particularly Michael Joy, who makes these seminars a joy. So next slide, please. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mengjia Zhu, who's a tenure-track assistant professor at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Her research interests lie at the intersection of computer science, medical imaging, and neuroscience. And she's focused on machine learning, spatiotemporal graph representation, learning algorithms for diverse applications, including neurodegenerative diseases, AI for healthcare, and is mining a very productive vein at the moment at NJIT, where she's in the Department of Data Science. So this is an important event for Rutgers because this marks the first seminar that we'll be hosting as part of the Rutgers Artificial Intelligence and Data Science RAD Collaboratory. So welcome, Mengjia, and thank you for helping to make this happen. Before she came to NJIT, she was at MIT and Brown University, having done her undergraduate, MS, and PhD training in Shenyang at Northeastern University. So welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Burry, for the invitation, and we're glad to be here. Today I'm going to talk about hyperbolic graph neural networks for predicting subjective cognitive decline, for detecting human brain and detecting human brain aging trajectories. Okay, now it works. So today my talk, first, I will give a brief introduction, and second, I will introduce some different graph embedding techniques, including some Euclidean space graph embedding methods, and also some new advanced graph embedding method into hyperbolic manifold. And after that, I will present our recent 2 papers on hyperbolic graph embedding for functional brain network analysis for 2 different application problem. One is the subjective cognitive decline prediction, and the second one is for the normal healthy brain aging trajectory detection. So now this is some little background. So Alzheimer's disease is a progressive brain network disease with a very complex etiology and multiple pathogenesis. So by 2015, there will be 152 million dementia patients, and the healthcare cost will be 1.1 trillion. So if you look at this figure, we can see that this is a normal healthy brain and goes through to the preclinical stage of the Alzheimer's disease, and then goes through to the mild cognitive impairment stage, and which is the early stage of Alzheimer's. And then it will be the clinical onset diagnosed as a dementia patient. So we can see actually this the progression of Alzheimer's disease contains multiple key phases. However, it happens actually 2 decades earlier before its clinical onset. So, but there are 3 important biomarkers we can use to help detect the early stage of Alzheimer's disease. So 2 proteins. So one is alpha beta and the tau beta protein. And the second, the last one is synaptic dysfunction, which can be detected by using the magnetoencephalography, which is MEG neuroimaging modality data I'm working on in the last few years. And so this MEG neuroimaging data can help us detect the connectivity in the human brain alterations. So, and before I will talk about some neuroimaging fundamentals. So neuroimaging modality usually falling into 2 broad categories, structural and functional neuroimaging. So functional neuroimaging data basically can measure the brain neural activities through some blood flow and or electrical activity. For example, the EEG, MEG, and functional MRI. So basically, they can measure the brain neural activity through some, the deoxygen blood, the both signals, like these time courses at different brain regions. And for the structural neuroimaging data, for example, the structural MRI or the computed tomography, CT scans, this can be used to measure the morphology and the size and the integrity of the gray and white matter structures. So we can see this is the structural MRI imaging. So it can tell us how the brain structure changes over aging. And so, and also there is another modality called diffusion MRI. They can measure the molecular diffusion in biological tissues. So we can tell the white matter tracks. So all of this functional and structural neuroimaging modality can help us to detect the Alzheimer's disease and the brain functional and the structural level changes. And here, our works focus on the functional neuroimaging data using MEG and functional MRI. We didn't include the PET imaging. And also we have some structural MRI data to quantify the structural level changes, like for example, the cortical thickness at different brain regions. And based on this collected data, like time series data, we can build some brain connectivity metrics for each subject. So this one can be viewed as the brain network. So we basically develop some deep learning algorithm using graph neural network for brain network analysis for the Alzheimer's disease. and also for the human brain aging trajectory detection. And this is some, maybe many of you already are familiar with this fundamental functional neuroimaging techniques, but I want to highlight here is the MEG data, which is non-invasive and mirrors the absolute neural activity directly. Compared to the functional MRI data, it can only mirror the relative neural activity where the oxygenation of the blood flow near active neurons. So we can see the MEG can provide a better absolute neural activity measurement. And also MEG neuroimaging modality, you can actually record the data in when the subject is sleeping. But the functional MRI, you cannot move, but usually actually we cannot avoid the participant to move in the machine. So we have to do some pre-processing for the data set. And also MEG, we can see this temporal resolution and the spatial resolution. We can see the MEG has a very high temporal resolution, very excellent temporal resolution in milliseconds compared to the functional MRI. They have a relatively lower temporal resolution in seconds. And so MEG also is better than this EEG data, so has a better spatial resolution. So and also here, the Dr. David Cohen is the inventor of the MEG machine from MIT. So we have the original draft copy of from David Cohen in the lab. Okay, so next topic, I will give a little bit of background about the healthy brain. So our brain is the seat of the intelligence and also interpreter of the senses and the initiator of the body movement and controller of our behavior. So basically control our thinking, moving, and everything, and the emotion and speaking and also the speech, understanding, and our vision. So you can see the human in our work, we study the human brain aging. The one motivation is from the National Institute on the Aging. One of the major research goals is to support the research and identify the age-related neural changes and mechanisms, and to improve our better understanding of the aging brain, and including some neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's and other type of disease like Parkinson's disease. And also it can help to develop interventions to address these different neurological conditions. But our human brain undergoes both structure and functional changes with normal aging. So currently the impact of aging on the trajectory of functional level, brain activity alterations in healthy individuals remains not fully understood. So that's why in our recent work, we aim to study the normal brain aging trajectory by examining the alterations in the hierarchical structure of the human brain network, and including both regional level and also subnetwork level changes over 600 subjects aged from 18 years old to 89 years old with the CAMCAN dataset. This dataset include both the structural data and the functional neuroimaging data and the MEG imaging data. So now, after the background and introduction, the second part, I will give some technical introduction, basically about the graph embedding approach. So we can so first we can see recent years, actually graph representation learning, basically graph machine learning has achieved a lot of big key breakthroughs. For example, they can be, as a company from Google DeepMind, they can develop some approaches using graph neural network for mathematical problem discovery. And also the second for the AlphaFold, which is also based on some graph structure modeling. And the last picture show, the recent, I think 2023, the paper on the weather forecasting using also the graph neural network message passing neural network to forecast 10 days for the weather forecasting. And so it has been highlighted in different top journals like Nature and Science. And so we can tell the graph embedding enables to learn powerful and highly informative representations by incorporating very important geometric information. For example, we have multi-scale graph topological features and additional node edge features. And so we can, after we learn this node representation or edge representation or even the whole graph representation, we can apply it to many different downstream inference tasks. For example, we can do node classification or link prediction in the protein data, and also do graph classification. In the real world, actually, a lot of data can be modeled as graph. For example, our human brain network is a typical graph structure data, and also the protein interaction networks. You are all the experts here, and the financial networks, and also the code network, basically the programming, because there are quite a lot of works on the Copilot and Codex, and so it's working very well now on the programming. So compared to, our human brain network include a lot of modules and a hierarchical structure. And compared to the Euclidean space data, the graph structure is in the non-Euclidean space and has every node can have different number of neighbors compared to the Euclidean space data like images and the text, language data, or audio data. So it's more complicated compared to the Euclidean space data, like computer vision task. But here, the non-Euclidean space graphs can also have arbitrary and varying graph structures. Like I just have a meeting with Dr. Parry about the protein binding problems. They can have different type of proteins and different sizes. So that's also very challenging for us. So, all the graph nodes in the graph, they are not ordered, but in the common images data in the Euclidean space, they are ordered. So you can tell the sequence of the directions in the neighborhood of one single pixels. And so in the graph also, we have a lot of complex interactions between the nodes. You can have directions on the edge, or you can have bidirections. So these are the differences. And so how to effectively and efficiently learn highly informative representations for the complex graph structure data. So graph embedding approach can provide us some very promising tools. For example, here, this is my assignment review paper published in 2021. I summarized based on the representation space and what's the format of the embedding graph embeddings. We can divide the graph embedding method into two different subcategories. So the first one is a deterministic graph embedding. Basically, all the graph nodes in the original high-dimensional graph can be embedded into lower dimensional space. In the Latin space can be viewed as a continuous dense vector. So each node can be encoded as a single point vector. However, the other type, we can call it a stochastic or probabilistic graph embedding. Basically, this is a core graph data set called Core ML network. It's a publication network. So including like almost 3,000 nodes and 7 different classes for the nodes. So we can see each graph node from the high dimensional space can be encoded as a Gaussian distribution. So we can see this is a density function in the Latin space, every single graph node. So in terms of the mean vector and also the variance vector. So the variance vector can help us understand the uncertainty quantification for each node in the Latin space. So you may ask, what's the uncertainty in the Latin space? So here, the uncertainty is a standard deviation corresponding to each node embedding. You can think about it as you can use it to quantify the node diversity of the neighbors. And also you can use it to quantify, the how to say, like the overlapping the concept levels. For example, if you think about each node is a concept in the corpus data, language data, you can think about these are the different concept levels, confidence levels. So it's basically the probability scale graph embeddings. They can help us give better interpretabilities in the Latin space. However, the first type embedding approach, they cannot give us this actual information. But in the real world, it is very important and very useful. And here are some very popular graph embedding approaches so far I can think about. So the first initial, based on the shallow neural networks, like the neural node-to-back method proposed from Stanford University, the very big graph neural network group, and also the graph sage. So both of these two papers has achieved like more than 10,000 citations so far in 6 or 7 years. So basically this approach can project the graph node or edge representation as vectors in the Euclidean space. So they cannot provide additional uncertainty information. And also, everybody should also will be familiar with the graph neural network approach, like message passing neural network and the graph convolution network and the graph attention network. So this type of approach, they can also learn the same representation for each node or edge as vectors in the Euclidean space. And so these are the first type. So you can basically embed a graph into Euclidean space as some deterministic vectors. And the second group is, for example, you can embed the graph as a density functions or probability distributions. So this type of approach can help us to quantify the uncertainty information and have better interpretability for the node embeddings. And this green color highlighted approaches actually our previous work during when I was a postdoc at MIT and Brown University. So this one is for the AD progression prediction. And this last two papers actually our recent work. This is 2023, sorry. So publishing the IEEE transaction neural network learning and systems. These are for the temporal graphs. So I'm also very interested in the temporal dynamics in the graph network. And so lastly, recently, due to the foundation models is very powerful. And also we can integrate the transformers model, sequence models into graph neural networks. And recently, actually, people also study some newer sequential model like state space model, Mamba model, which can have linear complexity compared to the transformer model is highly computational complex. So this type of approach also, the major limitation is used to address the overswitching and long-term dependency of this graph neural network methods. But the limitation is that they have a very high computational cost during the inference time. I mean, because the transformers model is mainly based on the self-attention mechanism. So self-attention has a very contracted computational cost. So so here is a figure we can show how to the graph embedding from the original high dimensional space into the lower dimensional distribution space, basically the Gaussian embeddings. Each graph node can be encoded as a lower dimensional multivariate Gaussian distribution in terms of the mean vector and also the covariance. So here, the important thing is the covariance can help us determine the uncertainty of the nodes. Or you can think about the relations between two nodes. So in our prior works, we have done focus on probabilistic graph embeddings for functional MRI data and also for MEG data using this stochastic graph embedding approach we developed for multiple graphs. So this is published in 2021 and 2020. This is for Alzheimer's disease progression prediction using the MEG data. And the second work, earlier one, is for the cognitive training effect detection and using functional MR dataset. This dataset is from the real collected data from the hospital in actually in China. So the last two papers is our recent work. We focus on so the left side are static graph, and the right side is temporal graphs. So we also focus on when the number of nodes change over time, and also you have different number of edges at different time steps in the graphs. So the graph basically evolves across time steps. So this important thing is how to capture the temporal dynamics. So we developed two different approaches in for the dynamic probability graph embedding, basically, and also using transformer model to capture the temporal dependencies across the time steps to modeling the long-term temporal evolution history information and capture the dynamics with the different time intervals. And this approach actually quite scalable to large graphs. So here, I just want to, after the summary, I want to just give a very short overview of the prior work on the stochastic graph embedding for the MEG brain network for AD progression prediction. So only 2 pages. So here we have 76 mild cognitive impairment patients, including 48 stable patients and 28 progressive MCI patients, which can be converted to dementia after 2 years. And we also have another group is clinical normal control people, 53, and all from our collaborator in Spain, Margie. So this is all MEG data set. So it's 5 minutes resting state MEG data. And we apply the brain atlas called Desiccant brain atlas. So including 68 brain regions, and this is the time courses, the original collected time series data. And based on this time series data, we build the brain network for the MEG brain network. So we can see the brain network is 68 by 68 using the mutual information, and this is a formula. And we develop an approach basically to output probabilistic embeddings for each brain region in the brain networks. And we can output the mean and also the variance to capture the uncertainty information. So one thing I want to highlight here, the variance actually in our paper, because in our brain, we have a certain number of subnetworks. So basically, you can think about subgroups. And here, the variance actually can help us quantify the number for the subnetworks is around 14, I remember. And actually, it's very helpful. So they can be very useful for this type of, to quantify the intrinsic dimension of this graph. If you think about some large scale complex systems, graph data set, it will be highly useful. And we apply this probability embedding for the AD progression prediction, basically the 3-class classification. And also we do some statistical analysis to quantify the significant change regions between different subgroups. So these are the results we have. So these are the highlighted brain regions, include the temporal and frontal regions in the cortex with significant MEG network alterations between the subgroups. And here, between the progressive MCI and also stable MCI. And this is a classification results. We can see actually for the 3-class classification, we didn't achieve very high performance because it's very challenging. Yeah, so that's the previous work, not hyperbolic neural network EX. But the limitation, the motivation of our work on hyperbolic graph neural network is based on these prior works. So we can tell all these approaches, they cannot capture node level hierarchical property in the embedding space. So this can be very useful during inference for for example, this different graph level tasks and the node level task and the link prediction. So here we start to work on hyperbolic graph embedding approach. So why we need hyperbolic space as the embedding space? Because here, if you look at this is the Euclidean space and this is a hyperbolic space, basically is the remaining manifold. And this is a spherical space. We can see hyperbolic space has a negative curvature. And this negative curvature property actually can help us to, has larger embedding space. And also you can capture the hierarchical informations. So we can see on the right side, this is two major hyperbolic space representation models. The first one is Poincare disk. So you can see this is the part, if you think about the graph is a binary tree, and this is the root node, is a parent node, and you have some children nodes under it, under the parents. So you can tell actually in the hyperbolic space, Poincare disk, you can tell the hierarchical structure from the orangey to the goes through to the boundary. You can see when the radius increase, actually the hierarchical is decreasing. And here the parent node is higher hierarchical compared to the children nodes. So more dominant nodes. And here, this is another, we call hyperbolic, or we call it a Lorentz model. They can have better stability compared to the Poincare disk. So we can apply these two different representation model in the hyperbolic graph embedding. So you can see actually the two major important benefits of using hyperbolic space as a latent space is they can preserve both graph distances and also the complex hierarchy. It's very extremely efficient, and you only need fewer dimensions to compare to the Euclidean embeddings. So here is a comparison between Euclidean embedding and hyperbolic embedding. If you think about this is an original tree-like graph, because a lot of graphs actually are skew-free graph. Basically, it's like a tree structure. Some nodes, like this pink node is kind of like a parent node and has a lot of children nodes, and under it you have mass number of children nodes. So when you embed this tree-like graph into Euclidean space, you can see this is all the green children nodes spread and merged, mixed up. But in the hyperbolic space, you can tell all the green nodes are spreading to the boundary of the Poincare disk. And the pink node is the parent node, is more hierarchical node. So they are in the center of the Poincare disk. So they have a better property to capture this hierarchical structure in the graph. So if you think about some real applications, these are very, very interesting. And recently, actually, since the hyperbolic graph embedding approach becomes more and more popular, and recently some foundation models are trying to also build the hyperbolic foundation model, the hyperbolic transformers in these 2 years, 2023 and 2024. More and more models are trying to, learn the hierarchical structures of the data. So that's the benefit. And here are some mathematical foundations, preliminaries about this hyperbolic space representation models, the two different models, the Poincare model, and this is the Lorentz model. So we can see compared between them, and the Poincare disk is more numerically unstable because of fraction of the Poincare distance formula here. And so it's like and however, the Lorentz model on the right side actually has a more numerically more stable and simpler formula. If you look at the hyperbolic distance in the hyperbolic space, is simpler compared to this formula. And more efficient optimization, because in all the neural network, we need the optimization is super important to get the best solution. And here is more efficient to do a remaining SGD, basically stochastic gradient descent optimization. And it can be scalable to larger data set. So these are the benefits of these two different representation models in hyperbolic space. And this is the optimization on remaining SGD optimization. Basically, you need to do some mapping from the Euclidean, from the tangent space, basically Euclidean space to hyperbolic space using some log map functions and exponential map functions. These are the objective functions, and this is a SGD optimization using remaining SGD to optimize the neural networks and to learn the update the sigma, basically the neural network parameters, to update the parameters and to find the best optimal solutions with proper optimal weights. And here is a visualization about the hyperbolic embeddings. Actually, is proposed by Nico. It's actually used to be at MIT in the same center where I am. And now he's working as a Meta company in New York City, Manhattan. So this one is hyperbolic embedding, and the data set is a corpus language data set. You can see, if you look, it's not too small. This is, you can see this is the entity, and go to location, go to city, and go to New York. So the concept of this different word, you see, goes through to the boundary from the orange. The concept of the word actually becomes more and more specific, and the central word is more generic word concept. So these are the interesting. So you can see on the boundary, they are all more specific words, but in the center are more high-level word, like a computer, and go to the PC, and go to laptop, and go to MacBook, and go to MacBook, and so on. That's the benefit of hyperbolic graph embedding. And now we are going to move forward to hyperbolic graph embedding, how to tackle the neural imaging data analysis for the human brain network to solve some real applications for the basically subjective cognitive decline prediction, which is very important for the Alzheimer's disease. And the second problem is healthy brain aging trajectory detection. So here, this is the first project. I worked with some people from MIT and a master student there. And so this is a hyperbolic graph embedding for the MEG brain network, and to study the brain alterations in the patients with subjective cognitive decline. Basically, it's very, very early. We cannot say they are patients yet, but they have some cognitive decline like a symptom. But here they have how many number? 49 subject SCD patient, not patients, sorry, subjects, and 41 clinical normal subjects. And we have the brain atlas is AL brain atlas, basically including 90 brain regions. This is the brain atlas. A different color indicate different brain regions, cortical region. And here, this is the brain network. Basically, the adjacent matrix, the brain connectivity matrix, is 90 by 90. And this is based on the face locking value matrix computed, this matrix from our collaborator from Spain, Madrid. And here, this is our neural network, hyperbolic graph convolution networks. And so first, it includes a feature input layer, and then feature transformation layer, and the neighborhood aggregation layer. Basically, you want to aggregate the node features based on the neighboring nodes. And then you have using the CLU activation functions to transform the information, to learn the nonlinear features. And then you do, again, the second layer, including the same feature transformation and neighborhood aggregation functions. And finally, we have the embedding output. By the way, here, for all the graph neural network, we cannot develop a very deep graph neural network, because if you have very, very deep graph neural network, you will have over-switching issues and over-smoothing. So your performance will be dropped down, actually. So
And this is the output embeddings, and each dot in the point query disk is each brain regions, and different colors show different subnetworks. So every subnetwork including a number of brain regions, and the circle shows the right hemisphere, and the triangle shows the left hemisphere. And this is the function for feature transformation using the weights parameter W and also the input features X, and B is the bias. And here, this is the aggregation function to basically to aggregate the node neighbors features embeddings to output the central node output embeddings. And so these are the fundamental of this model architectures. And here we have the compression apply this output graph embeddings for the link prediction tasks, basically to predict if these two nodes has a link or not. And so this is a link prediction. Actually, the objective function is a probability score. Basically, is based on the distance of the hyperbolic distance between the two node embeddings. L is the layer number. And here, the capital K is the curvature actually in the hyperbolic space. As we know, K should be a negative value because it's a negative curvature. And this is the point query disk hyperbolic distance formulas. So we basically want to minimize the distance between these two nodes because we want to predict if they are connected or not. So, and here, these are the embedding results. We can see compared to the classic graph convolution network in the Euclidean space, and also compared to the point query embedding, and also compared to, we have some learnable curvatures. Basically, this K can be learnable. And here, these are the link prediction results, basically mean average precision. We can see actually the highest performance, we test different embedding dimensions, L. So L is the embedding dimension, so from 2 and to 8. So we can see actually the hyperbolic graph neural networks, they can achieve very good performance even using 3 dimensions in the hyperbolic space. And if you look at the Euclidean space embeddings, they need higher embedding size, like 8, to achieve 82% accuracy. But here in the hyperbolic embeddings, you can achieve 95% based on a lower dimensional, require lower dimensional embedding size. So that's our results. And this is a deeper analysis about the subnetwork level hierarchical changes between the healthy control and subjective cognitive decline. So we detect actually the participants with SCD has reduced the distance from orange, basically increasing hierarchical centrality in the brain subnetwork, especially in this 3, dorsal attention and ventral attention network and the motor network. So this also correlated with some cognitive references we find from some literatures based on our collaborator neurology doctors from Johns Hopkins. And so this is on the predicting classification results for the SCD subjects compared to the normal control. Basically, it's a binary classification problem. We apply this hyperbolic embedding features, and also this is the original brain network connectivity matrix as the feature, and the green bar is only use the embedding features, and the red color, red bar show the combined features of the embedding feature and also the original connectivity values. We can see actually the embedding features helps to enhance the classification performance. And the second project is on human brain aging trajectory detection. So this project actually is working with a group. Basically, the data set is provided by a group from Italy in University of Trento. So the problem is basically predicting age and identify subtle changes in the brain activity across age. And so this set actually is, we have multimodal data set. We have cortical thickness, basically computed based on the structure MRI. And we also have the myelination, which is a very interesting indicator for the aging. And we also have the MEG functional neuroimaging data. So it's a multimodal data. And this set is a ChemCam data set. Actually, it's from University of Cambridge. There is a Center for Aging and Neuroscience, and include almost 600 healthy patients across 7 different age decades. So we categorize them into 20s age decades and 30 age and 40 and 50, 60, 70, and 80s. So multiple modality measures. So we have MEG, structural MRI, and also this myelination data. And these are the overall demographics about the data set. So we split them into 7 decades, age decades. And the number of subjects actually more or less are balanced, but we have more subjects in the 3rd decade from 40 to 50 and more subjects from 60 to 70, like 100. And also we have almost 50% of the female subjects. So the total number is 587. And here, this is a neural network different from the previous neural network because there is a major limitation of the previous neural network. It's not a fully hyperbolic neural network. If you look at detail in the layers, is actually you need to do mapping from tangent space, Euclidean space to hyperbolic space. And here, this model actually is a fully hyperbolic neural network. So every layer is you only need to do hyperbolic operations. You don't need to do mapping. Because when you do the mapping between 2 different spaces, you will lose some information and have some distortions and so on. So this is why we developed the fully hyperbolic neural network for studying this aging trajectory detections to make it more accurate. So we have the multimodal node features, including the cortical thickness from the structural MRI and also the myelination data, basically are scalars corresponding to each brain regions. And we have the brain network from computed based on the MEG time series. And so this is a MEG brain network, but here, so this construct brain network computation is done by our collaborator in Italy. So it's using HCP MMP1 during Atlas. So they include 360 brain regions. So the dimension of the graph is 360 by 360. And the matrix here, the value here, shows the phase locking value. Basically, is to compute the correlations between the 2 different number nodes. And so this is the hyperbolic graph convolution network. It is a fully hyperbolic neural networks. And here we can see actually the output is hyperbolic embedding point query disk. And so in the center, we can see the higher hierarchical, and in the boundary, close to the boundary, is the lower hierarchical. And we will talk about in detail about this meanings about this regional level hierarchical structures. So this is a figure we can see. This x-axis is the age decade from 18 years old to maybe 80 to 90 years old. So 7 age decades. So you can see this is for right early visual brain region. So we can see actually in the right hemisphere, we can see actually so the y-axis are the hyperbolic radius, basically mirror the radius size, the radius from the origin to the boundary. So you can see actually the right early visual, it has an increasing hyperbolic radius across age. So age decades. I mean, and those means they have reduced hierarchical of on the right early visual cortex during aging. And this is the average results among 587 subjects using the CAMCAN data set. So these are more brain RI, basically brain region of interest level hierarchical changes across age decades. So these are different brain regions, and we can tell they have some heterogeneous trends, aging trajectories. For example, this first figure you can see, this is the left primary visual. You can see it has an increasing hyperbolic radius, means is when the people at 80 to 90 and they have a higher radius, means they fall to the boundary. So they have a lower hierarchical. Basically means they lose some connections actually. And here, interesting is this two one. These two regions, and they doesn't change so much across age decades. However, this one is kind of a nonlinear change. So that's a 60 to 70 is maintained almost the same. And then after 70 and 80 to 90 years old, and they increase the hyperbolic radius, means the hierarchical structure change after 70 years old. This is for the sensory and motor cortex. So these are the some and also this paper actually is studied from our collaborator in Italy, and they didn't apply this neural network method, but they studied some statistical analysis, and they have the very consistent results as our results, the spatial regions here. And this is a subnetwork level analysis, hierarchical changes, and why also the cortex hyperbolic radius basically can small radius show high hierarchical and more strong connections. So we can see we have 22 subnetworks from primary visual, early visual, and so on, until to the dorsal prefrontal, and 22 subnetwork. Basically, each subnetwork actually is shown here. These are the 22 subnetworks. And every subnetwork have a number of regions. Yeah, these are the region names and the full name and also the labels. So here are the subnetwork level changes. And for each subnetwork, we have 7 colors, bars. So it means 7 age decades. From left is the purple color is the 18 to 30 years old. And then go through here, the red color show the 80 to 90 years old. And so these are we can see actually, we can, based on this figure, we can mirror the slope using some linear regression, like fitting least square fitting method to compute the slope. Basically, we can use it as an indicator for the aging trajectory quantification. So we can see this is the final quantitative results for the 22 subnetwork aging slope values. And this is the slope values, and this is the 22 subnetworks. So we can see the primary visual actually achieve a higher, larger slope. Larger slope means actually across the age decades, they change a lot. And here, the early auditory and some other auditory related subnetwork, they have relatively slow lobes, means they maintain almost relatively stable without big changes. And that's the overall subnetwork level hierarchical radius slope results. And so, and this is a visualization in the embedding space, in the hyperbolic embedding space. So as we know, we generate the hyperbolic embeddings. Let's see how the 2 subnetwork changes before in the first age decade, basically from 18 to 30 years old. And this is the 7th decade, means 80 to 90 years old. This is the first column is the early visual cortex. So they have the increased hyperbolic radius. You can see the blue circle, dashed circle means the radius. So you can see this is the 7th age decade, they increase the radius. So means decrease the hierarchy. We look at some papers, actually, they mentioned that actually they have some lost connections in the brain cortex. And here, this is early auditory, we can see compared to the first age decade and 7th age decade in the embedding space, they maintain similar radius size. And this triangle actually are the left hemisphere, and the square are the right hemisphere. So in our brain, actually is a relative symmetric here. So we can see actually in the embedding space is also show very symmetric results. So this can help us to verify our model performance. And this is a visualization in the human brain. And the color show the slope values. So we can see the red color show relative high slope, means they change, they have more changes across aging decades. And the blue color show relatively stable and not much changes. And we can see the early auditory is the blue, actually in the temporal lobe, and the early visual is here, actually in our occipital lobe. So it's a relative, it has a higher slope value and show red color. And after this works, I want to also mention some ongoing and future works, basically focusing on temporal dynamics in the graph data or time series data. So we are actually working on some papers, integrate the graph neural network with large language models, like this is a state space model and the transformers model. State space model, if you do nonsense method, actually is becomes a more alternative approach to transformers in the last 2-3 years. Since from 2021, I think 2021, from some people from Stanford. And so this approach, basically we want to integrate these two different models and to capture the temporal dynamics, either for the brain applications or the climate modeling. And also another direction is we want to also study the causal inference and the discoveries in the deep learning models, in these models. So that's two ongoing and future works. Actually, we have some paper actually will be submitted next the end of this month on integrate the graph neural network with the state space model for the temporal graph embedding. And basically this work actually with my PhD student and another master student from my deep learning class. And basically we develop this more interpretable and can integrate the edge feature in the temporal graph embedding. So basically the graph that change over time, and we can modeling the node level temporal changes dynamics using the state space model is a new model called Mamba model. So with the linear complexity compared to the transformer model is highly is relative very slow in the inference time. And so this is a and also the gene convolution basically can help us to integrate the edge features. So these are important for capture both the spatial and temporal dynamics, and also offer some uncertainty quantification for the node embedding, because we also still output the probabilistic embeddings. And also they have improved the efficiency compared to the transformer attention-based models. And this is the future work that actually I'm studying some new project with 2 students about this part, as on the causal inference about the time series data. So this is some Nature and Science papers related with this topic, but we actually find some research work on the brain network, but we want to actually maybe start from some time series data. I think the brain data is more sensitive and more complicated. So these are our future works. And finally, I want to acknowledge, thank you, all my collaborators for the MEG Brain Network projects, the 2 projects. So this is my collaborator from MIT, Dimitris Pandazis, is in the MEG lab. And also the 2 master students I used to work with, co-mentoring their master thesis. And this is the collaborators from Madrid and Spain who provide us with the data set for the subjective cognitive decline data. And this is a team from Italy, University of Trento. Actually, David provide us with the human brain aging data. And these are some other collaborators from UT Health Houston and Johns Hopkins, which provide us some comments on the paper about the brain neuroscience side. And I also want to thank the partial support from my beauty grant and the Air Force grant. And these are all the publications related with the graph embedding, hyperbolic graph. This one is a new aging trajectory paper. Is under review actually. And this is the CD prediction published in this year in June. And this is the previous works on temporal dynamics, temporal graph data. And this is a review paper and so on. So, okay, yeah, that's thank you very much. That's all my work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we don't have much time for questions. I'm sorry, because you went a little longer than 1 o'clock. Do we have any questions online? And how about in the room? So I have a question. Could you go back to your map of the different, the trajectory, the slopes of this one, yes. So loss of short-term memory capacity is a phenomenon that's seen in aging and more severely in Alzheimer's. Which changes on this in this depiction of network aging could we attribute to loss of short-term memory?
This data set actually is from Alzheimer's patients. They are normally healthy people.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but people's memory begins to deteriorate even if they don't have mild cognitive impairment, even if they don't have Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah,
and the question is, are there clues there as to where this happens in the brain?
Correct.
Temporal area, okay, right.
Yeah, I think maybe this one and this is from.
So they're not the highest slopes in terms of aging. Yeah, they're not the largest values of slopes in terms of aging, but they are among the higher values. Okay, all right.
I think this one. No, this is a prefrontal, and this is a lateral, and this is a.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's thank our speaker once again for a great talk.